Welcome into the Archives, where we dive into games long forgotten in our Steam library to bring up possible gems hidden within. Song of Horrors, where Spookumaggookums drops a one-track mixtape and everyone goes mad wild for it. Not only does the song speak to the soul, but brings the eldritch world to your home, which in turn brings its conga line of QuickTime events with it, as the game brings multiple souls into its story, and in the words of Dark Souls, to prepare to die. So let us dive in to see what this song has to offer. To start off, I want to say this review is going to be a definite mixed bag for me, but I'll give my full opinion at the end, so bear with me. The story follows the story of our stereotypical Steve kind of character, who thinks random evil doors of darkness in somebody else's house is a great place to look rather than, I don't know, not going into the impossible door? No, Daniel? No wonder this game has to bring other characters in to save your sorry tookus. Which then leads to the events about a mysterious music box with a song that stays in your head worse than somebody wants to. That once you have heard this song, you begin to be hunted by some kind of presence that wants your Stevie bottom. I won't say too much more about the story, do not wanting to spoil major details, since a lot of the mystery is about the song and the thing that is coming for you. While Daniel is our main protagonist of the overall game, we play as 13 playable characters over the 5 chapters. Mind you, only certain ones are available on each individual chapter. If they die, they never show up again. You know, like real life. Each one has a unique way of interacting with the world around them, and thoughts on various objects you find around the different settings. They also carry personal objects that give them a slight edge in certain scenarios. Then each one has their own stats, which there are 4 of, being Strength, to slam the doors and not get bad touched. Stealth, to see if the presence wants to give you the spooks as often. Serenity, to see how easily you are spooked. And Speed, which is a drug and very illegal. Oh. So that adds to the depth of the characters you play. If you're playing the standard difficulty that the game recommends you play, which, by the way, is hidden in only the options menu, then these additional characters act more like lives than anything else. Daniel's the only exception where if he dies, you have to full reset the whole chapter. So, do you get different routes or stories if you play certain characters, or if a certain one dies? Well, no. The game does make it interesting where if one character dies, you get to switch to another one to take their place, finding their stuff close to where they had died. So you just get to continue on like nothing happened. But that is the only thing that these characters do. Okay, what about the endings? If you play really well or crap, does that affect what kind of cutscene you get? Sadly, it does not. The ending fully revolves around Daniel and nobody else in the very end, which brings me to a point I want to talk about, so skip to here if you don't want spoilers about the game. We good? Cool. So to put simply, the music box that the game focuses on is actually a means for the presence to come into our realm using its song. So Daniel, being the doorman he is, decides to travel to the realm and yeet the box behind the evil door to trap it in its realm forever. And, well, it goes fairly alright. Except when the daughter of the creator of the box pulls out a second one, and that she had the whole time, that she could have given to you and yeet with the first box, which gets Daniel killed in the end anyways. I get this is a kind of eldritch horror ending, which even if you win, you don't. I just hate the whole second box idea. It makes sense, I guess, considering what is written on the first one. I just don't like how the events unfold regarding the second box, and how none of your risk prior to the point mattered. I mean, what is the point of all these characters if ultimately they mean nothing to the end? That's just me. Felt like there was just so much missed potential here. So, how does our schnookums work? Are the scares or its kill mechanics staged or random? Well, it's actually a mix of both. Each setting has places if you interact or go into, you get insta-gibbed. Usually the game does have notes you're supposed to find before you reach that area, and that kinda gives you a hint where really bad things are. Sometimes. Also, you can listen to doors to hear if Spookums is hiding behind it. There are QuickTime events that you run into that involve hiding, shutting the fuck up, and a few others that get added later in the game to keep things fresh. Then comes the AI of Spookums, where they will attempt to throw more of these QuickTime events at you if you're being loud and attracting its wrath, or sometimes to throw jump scares because it's kind of a dick. I feel like overall this game's AI, in my experience, did a really good job at not spamming QuickTime events at me 24/7, since I walked slowly and wasn't loud. It also made the overall game tense as you never knew when it was going to come for you. A note on the QuickTime events though, they're not very well done in the sense that the gameplay of them can be a little unfair. Like the shut up and stay quiet game where you stay close to the breathing circle, but your character still wants to cough up their lungs, so that way the monster can have a nice little taste. However, the presence's true power is making characters have the will to stick around in its death traps and always come alone. Frickin' jeez, Renine, frickin' go back up. You just saw this monster twice now, and don't act like it was just a hallucination. It was there for a long time while trying to get a good sniff. But none of my characters died, because I read the notes telling me where not to touch and listed the doors to hear if they want my giblets, so this game rewards patience and smart thinking. Overall, Schnookums made sure I knew it was there and ready to surprise me whenever it felt like, so it did in fact have a presence. But you may have noticed what this game does well with, its atmosphere. To give the game some serious credit, it does a great job with its lighting detail, where places of darkness can be very scary, but even well-lit rooms give you a sense of uneasiness as you are never safe from the presence. Not to mention, the set design always felt lived in with a history. However, to look around the environments you're in, the camera drives like bumper cars, since the game uses a fixed camera system, where it likes to flick different perspectives quickly, causing you to readjust what keys you're pressing. This game does recommend you use the controller, which I'm sure would make this process easier, but I'm lame. I'm not a big fan of this kind of camera style. I understand this is a homage to the old style horror games such as Silent Hill and Resident Evil. However, I just feel like this game's execution in that style made it more difficult for me to enjoy the game and the environments as much. The only positive thing I can say about the camera is it does give you a good sense of claustrophobia in a lot of places, which can add to the spook appeal. While we're on the controls, we should mention when you want to pick up the items, interact with something, or look at something, you have to guide the character's head towards the object with the mouse, or the other joystick if you're using a controller, which means you need to guide your fat noggin everywhere to ensure you find everything. In some cases, you're not supposed to even look directly at the item you want to work with, but above it, which makes things a little more awkward. This also controls where your light source is pointed, since light helps your character actually to see things. I didn't hate this control scheme due to most of the important items tended to be out in the open and not super hidden. Also, a quick side note. This is also one of the games where sometimes you have to look at an item first, but then when you interact with it again, you get a note or an item. It doesn't happen often, but keep that in mind when you play. With the mechanic about picking up items, are there any kind of puzzles? Absolutely, as puzzles play a big key in interacting with this mystery. Not just mundane puzzles either. Sometimes puzzles that involve interacting with that terrible eldritch world, so it adds a layer of paranormal investigation as well. Sometimes it's just looking at your picked up items to see if there's a detail on them that may be important or an item hidden on it. Puzzles could be fixing a fuse box to get power going by using math to get it right. These puzzles are not always spelled out for you either, as they require to use info and context clues of the area to help you solve them. Overall, the puzzles are well done to challenge the mind and make sure you're reading over every note, as there tends to be hidden clues for certain puzzles and for your survival as well. It makes sure that you're engaging of the world so that you're not just mindlessly walking through it. That being said, sometimes the puzzles are a little too vague as to what you're supposed to do exactly, which leads to frustrating spots. Also, sometimes after you complete an objective, you sit there wondering what you're supposed to do next to continue the story, which can lead you awkwardly walking around mindlessly not knowing what to do until you run into the plot. Some recommend that you use a walkthrough or a guide during your gameplay, as some of the puzzles are very difficult to the point you're not sure how to proceed. A good example of this is when messing with the fuse box in the first chapter. I thought it was some kind of division puzzle to not overload the numbers on the left. When that didn't work, I thought maybe you were supposed to go over the numbers, but the multiple wires connected on each fuse would divide the power among the different wires. Alas, it was just me overthinking, and it was just match up the numbers to equal the numbers. Keep it simple, dummy. The only issue is there was no note on how to interact with the fuse box. And look, I'm a big idiot, so I need at least a push in the general direction of what to do. Alright? Now to give whether or not I liked the game. The answer is, not really. As a story, I was invested to see where it went and how the presence works. However, because of how the game made it a point to play safe, I played very slowly and checked everything to consider all my options before I made any big decision to interact with things. Where the big maps with the wonky camera angles made it a crawl fest to make it to the end. More quick time events would not have made this better. In fact, I've heard some players who ran around to get from place to place face them so many times it became more of a chore than anything else. That being said, I don't think this is a bad game. In fact, I would say with its target audience, it's probably one of the best smaller indie games to come out in the last several years. However, I am just not that target audience. So my personal enjoyment was lackluster, but I did enjoy watching YouTube videos of them playing the whole game with no commentary, so I could read the notes and watch the events unfold. I only got to the second chapter before I felt like it wasn't for me. I could have maybe played this game on much easier difficulty to experience the whole game myself, but I was content watching it unfold. As if I were to continue, I felt like the experience would not been the same that the devs would have want me to have. Rolling with the price tag of $30 and giving a general playtime about 15 to 25 hours, I would say Song of Horror might be a great game to add to your repertoire, but understand that I feel it hits more of a niche audience in horror rather than the whole spectrum to play. Where I felt Stygian was fundamentally broken, where I wouldn't recommend it at all, this one, even though I didn't enjoy it, I could see easily why many loved this game. So maybe give it a shot. So that was my review on Song of Horror. I hope you all enjoyed, and please do leave some feedback on the presentation, wording, or hurt feelings about these reviews. Next video is going to be a little different. I hope you guys will enjoy it. Until then, enjoy the archive.